Guten Dagen! Hey, hello, welcome back. My name's Terry and I am the Shieldmaiden in the kitchen. Today, on this kind of dark, gray, rainy, dreary day, I have a nice recipe for you that maybe will feel like comfort food, at least if you're like me and you're someone who considers bread part of the comfort food category. And it, of course, is going to be something related to Vikings. Today we are going to make barley flatbread. It's a bread product that we know from archaeology that the Vikings ate. They also did other things with barley, of course, including, as you might imagine, making beer. That was a very important staple in the Viking world, and like many other cultures before them, they used grains to drink. But we are going to make grains that we eat today. And like other cultures as well, Vikings have a flatbread product. You can think of many cultures in the world, such as the tortillas or the naan, or maybe even the pizza without toppings on it, I guess, or maybe with toppings. But it's a flatbread product that doesn't take a lot of leavening ingredients, and it's very quick and easy to make, and usually always kind of portable as well, so it's quick and easy to eat. And Vikings had the same thing as other cultures did in this regard. And so I have a recipe that I actually got from one of my former students in my Viking history class, Sarah, and she shared this with the rest of the class on our final day when we had our Viking feast. It was yummy bread, but full disclosure, you're going to experiment with me today because I've actually never made this bread before, and so I really wanted to try it so that I could share it with you. And it's a really simple recipe as well. So let's get started. Here's our recipe. Look at that, nice and short. 5 simple ingredients. So I think pretty much anyone could make this. It's very easy, and all of these ingredients are not so expensive and pretty accessible almost anywhere. First off, as you might imagine, for barley flatbread, we have barley flour. I get mine from a local business that I think has products available pretty much on the west coast of the United States, if that's where you happen to be, and possibly even in other parts of the country, but I think pretty much available for ordering online, and that is from Bob's Red Mill. This is what they do grains, and they do it really well, and so all of my flours I buy from there. If you don't have access to Bob's Red Mill, that's fine. Just order some barley flour online or look for it in your local grocery store. The other ingredient, simple, melted butter, sugar, a little bit of salt, and a couple of cups of milk. And so I think what we're looking for is a batter here that is going to be somewhat similar to the consistency of a pancake. Again, a type of flatbread, maybe a quintessentially American flatbread, the pancake, but that's what Sarah has said it looks like, and so I trust her, and we'll be looking to get the same kind of consistency as we mix this up. I will be going a little off-piste, as I usually do, and I'm going to bake these in a different type of pan. Sarah baked hers in cake pans, and I actually have to admit, even though I have a cooking channel, I don't have cake pans. And so I suppose note to self, get some cake pans. But what I want to do is to experiment with my cast iron skillets, because those actually make breads really nicely in the oven. And this is what's going to happen. This particular Viking flatbread is baked in the oven. It's not made on top of the stove like with a griddle or something. And so, and because of the fact that Vikings had iron available to them, they did live in the Iron Age after all, and remember all of those swords and everything. So I think that this will be an interesting experiment for maybe baking it in a type of unit that Vikings would have had access to, at least in some form. All right, now, one of the things that Vikings didn't have access to, but I'm excited to share with you, is that since the last video I made, I actually got a new stand mixer. So the KitchenAid stand mixer, pretty much a staple, I think, in cooking. If you're doing it a lot, it's really helpful. And this is a beautiful gift from my very good friends, Mark and Chalet. I started making some things and sharing with them, and then they have this mixer and said that they were hardly ever using it and kind of wanted to get it off their kitchen counter, and so they just gave it to me. So thank you so much, you guys. It's such an awesome gift, and I'm so blessed to have great friends like you. Now let's get to mixing. first off, 2 cups of the barley flour. And this is a recipe where you basically are just going to throw all 5 ingredients into the bowl and mix them together at once. So you don't have to do a, sort of mix the dry ingredients and then mix the wet ingredients separately and then combine. So that, and then we have 1 teaspoon of salt. There. And then similarly, 1 teaspoon of sugar, just regular white caster sugar as they call it in the UK. Two tablespoons of melted butter. Oh, my melted butter has kind of gotten hardened up a little bit. There we go. Throw that in. And then 2 cups of milk. And I'm using whole milk here. I always use whole milk. I just like the taste of it. I like the texture of it, the consistency of it for baking. It adds a nice richness. And again, I use organic milk as well, but you can use whatever kind of milk you like. The recipe, as Sarah gave it to me, just says 2 cups of milk. And so that's, up to you to do. She also used whole milk as well. So I'm going to go along with what she did because I know how they turned out. All right, so now let's hook up our whisk. New mixer. And we'll whisk that together until it gets to a nice consistency. Again, that's sort of like pancake batter. That looks pretty good. So stop the mixer. I was mixing on about a medium to medium-low speed. And indeed, it does look like we have something that is similar to pancake batter. So let me remove the whisk. Give you a look. There you can see. Slightly thick pancake or waffle batter, really. And that is all there is to mixing those ingredients together. And now we are ready to prepare the pans. We do need to grease and flour the pans so that the breads won't stick. So we'll take care of that now. Here are my 2 pans. So as you can see, they are cast iron skillets. I'm going to use these instead of the cake pans that I mentioned I don't have, but I think they look pretty much like cake pan size. They might be slightly deeper, but this batter is not going to go all the way up the sides anyways. There's just not that much of it, so this should work out pretty well. The pans do need to be prepared, again, with some oil and some flour so that the breads don't stick. I think you can probably use a vegetable oil if you prefer, but I'm going to use butter because I think when I'm making a recipe like this that has melted butter in it, I like to retain that nice rich flavor of the butter and so not add another kind of oil when I'm doing the preparing of the pans. So let me get to that right now. I'm just going to use a regular stick of butter, and it's kind of slightly soft but still firm so I can hold on to it, and you can already see it kind of starts to melt a little bit in my fingers, but that way I can just sort of rub it in there and get a nice coating on the bottom and on the sides as well. That for both pans. And then just use regular, I'm going to use regular all-purpose flour. So I don't want to use my barley flour as much. Regular all-purpose flour will work just fine, and quite frankly it's a little less expensive, so I can stand to use it up. Now again, I mean, barley, some of you may know this, I mean, it's one of the oldest grains literally that humans know of, that humans have been eating for a long, long time. And I know we know that even the ancient Egyptians cultivated it pretty widely because they definitely made beer with it, just like Vikings did. And so, you know, between barley and oats and wheat, and then some of the other more ancient grains that are starting to make a comeback, which is really cool, we've got a long tradition of this kind of grain being eaten in various forms by human beings. And again, Vikings are just part of that tradition, even though there wasn't oodles and oodles of arable land in Scandinavia, depending on where you were, of course. We know that they were cultivating this grain where they could. Okay, so there's some creation of a little bit of a non-stick for the pan, and next we're going to pour our batter in and get these into the oven. 2 prepared pans, buttered and lightly dusted with all-purpose flour, and now all that's left to do is put our batter into the pan. And so the batter I've got here, I'm just going to literally, 2 pans, cut it in half. Put half in one and half in the other. It does have an interesting consistency. I mean, I said like pancake batter, but it also kind of feels slightly thick like a cake. So that's an interesting development, I think. It'd be really kind of cool to see how much these raise or not. There is no leavening in here, as you remember. There's no like baking powder or yeast or anything else, not even any sourdough. They will be hopefully pretty flat. I'm going to spread it around so that it gets to all edges of the pan, which of course now will make it even thinner as a finished product. And Sarah said the best way to eat them is straight from the oven when they're nice and warm. So I am going to definitely give that a try and see. I can imagine, right? Everyone always likes bread straight from the oven, no matter what form it takes. Generally smells good, generally tastes good, and again, very much part of that comfort food category, at least if you're someone like me. Now there we have it. And the next thing we'll do is wipe off my fingers so that I can put that in the oven. The oven has been preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Going to slide those in there. There you go. And in we go. Now, according to Sarah's recipe, this is a 30 to 35 minute bake, although she did say it depends on whether or not your oven runs hot. She said hers runs hot, and so she was about 20 to 25 minutes on the timing. I'm going to set mine for the earlier and then check and see what kind of progress they're making, because I am doing it on my convection setting, which means the fan is going, which means the heat is going to be generated, but and also nicely evenly distributed, but it also means that it might be a little bit hotter as well. So I'm going to set for 20 minutes and then double check and see how much more of the maybe 10 or so minutes that will be remaining that we'll actually have to use. So we'll check back in a little bit and see what we've got. 20 minutes are up. Let's take a look. Oh, usual problem, steam. Ah, there we go. Let's see. Actually, they might be done. They don't brown too much. This is a real sort of delicate flour, so I'm thinking they aren't supposed to brown much more than that. But as you can see, there's some cracks that have formed on the top. And this is one thing that Sarah said in the recipe, and that is, you know it's done when the cracks start to form. That's 20 minutes, so my oven must run pretty hot. It feels slightly soft and spongy to the touch. Maybe I'm going to give them just a couple more minutes and then pull them out. These are now out of the oven. I have a total of 23 minutes that I left them in there, and they definitely have formed some nice cracks on the top. And in the last 3 minutes that I left them in, they tended to harden up slightly, stiffened up just a little bit, although you can still, there's a little bit of push there to them. So they're not too pillowy, but you can tell there's a little bit of softness to it. I'm going to go ahead and remove them from the pan, and we'll see how easily they come out and what we end up with here. The pan is still hot, and I'm going to use a spatula. Let's kind of see what we can do. I did get a pretty good coating on the pan, so hopefully it'll kind of fall out. And it did. All right. Cool. That looks nice. The bread looks to be about maybe 1/4 of an inch thick, a little bit more possibly. And because it's nice and cracked, it broke apart pretty easily. And so I'm going to put some butter on it. Those of you might recognize this if you're into Old Norse or Icelandic. This is smear. This is what the Viking word for butter was and is still if you live in Iceland. I actually ordered this from Iceland to be shipped because it's such good high quality butter. It's very, very rich, and I just haven't tasted anything like it anywhere else in my travels. So of course, if we're going to make Viking flatbread, we're going to put Viking butter on it as well. And this is salted butter to boot. So I'm going to put a little bit of butter on there. This is very nice. It has a nice texture to it. It's slightly chewy, but not too much. It has a nice, very kind of mild, sort of nutty flavor, actually, to my taste, from the barley, of course. And I can imagine you eating it with maybe something sweet on it, like honey would be great. We know Vikings had access to honey. Also, jam would be another option. And because it does have kind of this thicker feel to it, if you made like a kind of a thick pancake, this would be a nice Sunday breakfast, maybe even with some maple syrup or some fresh fruit on it, or Icelandic skyr as well. So I would definitely make this again. This is a great experiment. All right, well, thank you for hanging out with me and doing this. I really like it, and thank you, Sarah, for sharing the recipe. I hope you all make it. Again, as you see, it's pretty quick to make, and this is Viking fast food, so the next time you need to go out and raid and trade, make some barley flatbread and take it with you on the food on the go. Now I need to wash this pan because I'm going to get ready to make elk tacos. And stay tuned, because in one of my future videos I'm actually going to feature some of the wild game that Vikings would have had access to and would have eaten, because in addition to being fishermen, they were also hunters as well. So thanks again, and remember, if you like what I'm doing here, please like and share and subscribe. The recipe will be posted in the description as always. And now I have to go get ready to watch the Seahawks hopefully beat the New Orleans Saints. And what I think I'll do as a precautionary measure is sacrifice one of these breads to Thor, just to make sure. All right, sjáumst!